Complexity is only designed so that when you fail, you can blame the system. Complexity is only revealed so that when you come up short, you can blame the process. Simplicity is so that you forfeit the right to have an excuse. When you claim that something is easy, you forfeit the right to complain. He would often say to me, he would say, Krish, most people find fault like there's a reward for it.
So really what you need to concentrate on is, what is my next strategic move in what I'm doing for my business? Now, we all know that to be a great chess player, that the truly good ones are looking 5 to 6 moves down the road. So I'm not going to kid you on that, but I will give you that you can take a little bit of breathing room and saying, really, next strategic move, what is it? Implement that one. All right. We'll talk more about that in a little while. Don't forget, this is a game. Again, Winston Churchill. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts.
Our whole business, our whole passion, our whole drive is centered around how do we find your A+ as an owner and abandon everything else, and I mean abandon it. The strategic coach in Chicago, anybody know who Dan Sullivan is or read any of his stuff? Yeah, he's a thought leader, and about 3,000 of us around the globe go to either Chicago or Toronto 4 times a year, and his whole business is focused around how do we get business owners and what he calls their unique ability. So what he's talking about is virtually what we're saying, find your A+ and capitalize on it. So how we do that is we measure 7 work-related traits.
Okay, and particularly in a small and fast-growing companies, which most of you guys have, that's a real danger, is that you get an idea, you set the vision, but you don't execute against it for a million reasons, and usually the million reasons have to do with running your business day to day, and you don't really execute on that goal. And then what happens is you're back in the same spot the next year. You're saying, well, we were going to standardize whatever last year. It didn't happen. We're going to do it this year. And your employees keep hearing that same story over and over again, that, you know, here's our goal, this is what we're going to do, and then either the goal changes or the goal never gets talked about again. So you kind of lose credibility. Go ahead.
Risk. Well, I don't know how you can be an entrepreneur, be in business for yourself, without talking a little bit about risk. There's going to be times in my 30 years, I can look back and say the home run deals that I've had, I had all the information, I had the experience, I had the gut feel, and I pushed the chips out on the table. And the safe bet would have been, don't do it.
If you walk out of here with nothing, know one thing, keep your personal credit report clean. Because when you're running a business, the bank's always going to run your credit report, always. And if you got a bad credit score, they're going to say, well, that person may run their company like they run their own personal stuff, and that's not a good sign. So you got to keep a good personal.
What I want to talk to you about now are the things that you want to know about social media. Not the technology stuff. I'm not a very technical person. I know how to use social media because it's basically communication, right? It's communication to achieve business goals. That's how I see it. It sits on platforms that happen to be technology, but these are platforms like Facebook, right? That platform, that technology, was created for anyone to use. So any idiot can use Facebook, right? It's not very difficult. It was created for the general population. But leveraging that power of Facebook or Twitter or Pinterest or LinkedIn for you to move your company forward, that's where the magic really comes from. That's why you need to talk to people like me and Jessica and Hussein to figure those things out. Because
so there's a lot of different components involved in project management. We don't have time today to delve off into the many different directions. But basically, some people say, well, I can't afford a project manager. I don't have the time to devote to training them. Let me tell you that Krish has a saying that I just love. It's better to do things poorly until you learn how to do them well, more or less. And that's the case here too. You're better off to manage your projects with somebody brand new with very little training than you are to try to just do it yourself. Because when you're doing it yourself, you're not addressing the business. So as part of your growth, you've got to take certain things, managing projects is a good one, and delegate that to somebody and train them. So you get a waterfall behind you, and you're going to teach somebody how to use an oar? I don't think so. You're going to grab that oar, and they're going to watch you, right?
So when you get that uncomfortableness, that's a good thing. So if I'm telling you to do things differently and you're uncomfortable with it, that's good. I've accomplished my job. But here's the other thing. If I'm sitting across from Chandler, and I personally do not understand change and why it's important, and I'm sitting across from him, and I ask him a question, a tough question like, so what's that costing you now? And I see him going, and he gets uncomfortable. You know what I typically do as a salesperson? Oh, I got to bail him out. I got him uncomfortable. That's not good. And so I go, well, not a lot, right? And he goes, no, not a lot. Here's the paradigm shift I want you to think about. When I get him uncomfortable, he's thinking about change. When I get him relaxed again, he stops thinking about change. So the paradigm shift I want you to think about is a prospecting call should not be comfortable for the prospect. If you do not get them uncomfortable, they're not going to be thinking about change. Not uncomfortable with you or your product or service, but uncomfortable with their situation.
To kind of put this in perspective, when we talk about corporate America, in 2009, surveyed the top 1,000 CEOs of the country based on income, publicly reported income. 11.26% of their pay was salary. 85% of that group's pay was incentive. If you look at the top 100, this number's 3, and the rest goes over here. Okay? Those guys are motivated to get things done.
Says, oh hell, we're never going to make that. And it's kind of the end of the charge. And at the same time, if everybody starts off and it just goes gangbusters, by the end of the 3rd month they're saying, we got this one made, let's lay back. This bonus plan I devised to overcome that problem. I call it the plateau bonus plan. And what it does, it gives you a new starting point at each plateau.
Hard work and passion and the grind. And I tell people, and it's probably not too applicable in this particular class, but a lot of conventions I speak to where the crowd's a bit older and maybe been in business a lot longer, when you come to work and you turn the key and you come in and you turn on the coffee maker and you turn on the lights and then you start answering the phone, and at the end of the day you go out and you turn off the coffee maker and you turn off the key, it's time to hand it to somebody else. It's supposed to be fun. And if it's not fun and you're not loving it, you're in the wrong business and you need to move on. Sell it to some young whippersnapper.
Tip number 2 is before you sell, have a plan with what you're going to do for the rest of your life. Seriously, have a plan for what you're going to do with the rest of your life. I remember when an advisor friend came to me and said, let's talk about this. He was over at my office. I remember it like it was yesterday. He crossed his legs and he said, David, before we even talk about all the money you're going to make and, everybody, you think you're going to make all this money and all this kind of stuff, think about what you're going to do the rest of your life. And I was like, I'll figure it out. I'm not worried about that. But what you've got to understand is you can't underestimate the personal gratification you have, many of you have, in running a business, okay? Selling could leave a huge void in your life, a huge void. There is significant ego gratification with leading people. You are the big man on campus, and trust me, when you sign on the dotted line, most of the time, that will be over.
Your perception may be that you are focused, determined, persuasive, assertive, responsible, team builder, passionate, a leader, a visionary, and a risk taker. Your family sees you as manipulative, controlling, aggressive, angry, selfish, obsessive, opinionated, dry, and emotionally unavailable. Now you got a problem. So what are you going to do? Well, you can go to church on Sunday, but, that doesn't solve the whole problem because you still really are who you are. And I've been through this. I had to actually, for self-examination, get to a point where I quit a lot of successful businesses that I had because it just didn't jive.
Okay. Coaches, how many consider that one? Absolutely. How about this one? The trusted colleagues, people you trade with, and then pouring resources into yourself. Okay. How about this one? Do you see animals or a tree? Okay, perspectives, right? How about this one? Do you see horse or a mountain? So on your window, are you always looking at other people's perspectives?
I'm going to quickly, because I gave the professionals most of the time tonight, go through some key beliefs I have. One is, and I may have told some of you this, the greatest gift in the business world that I ever received, I gave myself, and that was, and I couldn't afford to give it to me until I was 50. But at that point, I promised myself I would never again do business with anyone that I didn't have some respect for and have some enjoyment of associating with.
And you should be aware that Peter Drucker, who's the Dean of American Business Leadership and Management, says culture eats strategy for breakfast. And then I think the president of Ford took that on, and I think he said, no, it was lunch. So at any rate, what this means is you can have the best possible strategy in a dysfunctional culture, and you won't succeed. On the other hand, you can have a great culture and a stinky strategy, and that culture will figure out what the problem is and correct it.
I told you all about my corporate culture. Imagine if you're an employee, you're being told by the Attorney General that we're operating illegally. All of the customers are being told that they don't have to pay. How do you get through all that? The culture. We almost had no turnover whatsoever from our employees during this time. I know of, we do 100,000 transactions a year just in New Mexico. Out of those 100,000 transactions, I think we may have lost 4 customers that said, we don't have to pay you because of the Attorney General. Our customers are that loyal. In the 15 years we've been in business, we've had maybe 10 complaints that have reached the Attorney General's office. We just get no complaints because we operate that kind of level of customer service. So the culture, I believe, has really saved me.
The caring culture is attraction, acclimation, development, care. Care is the retention piece. And for me, I believe care is sharing. And I'm very generous when it comes to benefits for the best people on the team. What are the things that, you think tanning company, how can they be the best? How can they be legendary? Well, we set out day one with 3 important values: work hard, have fun, make history. Work hard, have fun, make history. And for me, making history was number 1, was having the highest sales ever in the history of the world. That'll be my goal again in the next industry. The world, not Dallas, Texas, or Southwest region, or United States, the world. And all the key metrics. And you say, man, whoa, that's big. Yeah, you need something big to energize you. But if you're going to have the biggest goals, you got to have the best employees, right? So for sure, you've got to be the best place to work. And how do you become the best place to work? Well, that's through attraction, acclimation, development, care. And you've got to think through each one of those components if it really matters to you to have great people.
You'll know your culture's really starting to kick in when you're out of town and you start seeing random emails that go out through the whole company saying, hey, kudos to Jessica. She really kicked some serious ass on this project. She helped us get this sale. Thank you so much. Pictures of employees hanging out on social media. This culture's not manufactured. Culture's not manufactured. Cool, fun, can't be manufactured. You have to instill it in your employees. They have to feel like they have the freedom to step out, to talk, have conversations.
Here's the question. You've gone through 10 weeks. You will add a lot. You will delete a lot. But make sure as you canvas that which you have learned from a lifetime worth of experience invested in you, that anytime you talk about this program and its merits, make sure nobody ever comes back to the mentors and says, we're hoping he wouldn't have said that. That would be the ultimate honor to us and to these guys. So as I wind up, if you can give the rest of these guys who invested of their time, their talent, and their treasure in you an applause, I would appreciate it.
I learn something every week, and the main thing that I can't put a title on is that I learned that I'm not ready to give up, and that I want to stay in it. And that when and if I decide to sell it, it'll be because it's a beautiful package to sell, not one that was hurting.
My takeaway is before this group, I always in the middle of my business doing all the day in, day out work. So I never got time to back off and spend 20% of my time visualizing and planning. And I get tons and tons of numbers, but I never have time to crunch them because I'm always middle of day by day. So what I've done in my company since then is I've taken all my key employees, my key managers, who are really incredible. I have incredible managers who've always wanted to be empowered to do stuff, and I've empowered them.
What I've really gotten out of this is the energy, motivation, and literally the step-by-step of how to set those goals, put policies and procedures in place so that I can make that quantum leap that I'm looking to make in the next 5 years.
You got to get these coaches, you got to get these mentors, you got to get these outside resources. I mean, when Jerry was talking about the outside resources, like I got Jobs book, read it, Starbucks book, read it, now I'm like all in these books. So these resources, I mean, just keep always having that in your system, always learning, that's huge, and you guys, all y'all, the mentors, and even y'all in the class, I mean, everybody's just motivated, so it's inspiration.
Number one, the realization of the potential for a great exit. I hadn't really thought about my future. I hadn't done the go at the goal with the end in mind.
Clarity, focus, execution. Success is personal and a journey.
What Tony Geary said about give them a little more than they expected really goes a long way in my book. And so I'm trying to think of new ways to use that strategy with my technicians on give them a little bit more than they expect, because most of my customers just have no idea what to expect when we show up at their house and there's a 1/4 inch of water in their entire house and they think we're just there to vacuum it up.
One of the big things, and Rex and a number of other people talked about this, was building your culture and making it fun. And so I've tried to, he said, when people walk into my office, they feel the energy right away. And I thought, what do people feel when they come into my office? And I don't think they feel the energy. And so I tried to instill that.